Good morning, gentlemen. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Athlon Helos BTR Gen2 1:10 by 28mm LPVO, or kind of an MPVO, if you will. Now, before we get into the video, if you want to help me out personally, you can, of course, like, share, and subscribe, as all that is free and does help me out quite a bit. On top of that, there's also my website, which in theory has cool things in stock, like the Reticle Pro, which is finally back in stock. On top of that, go ahead and comment your favorite 4-tier LPVO in the comments down below. Now, full disclosure on this optic, I did not pay for this optic, and that is because this video is sponsored once again by Optics Planet. Now, if you text FOCUS to 80907, you will get 10% off of your first order, 5% off of ammunition after that. They sent this optic out to me for free. They send me products, and in exchange, of course, if you text that code, you guys can save a little bit of money. That is my entire relationship with Optics Planet. I don't have any relationship with Athlon. I have heard good things about their products. They make some more budget-tiered stuff, as well as some very expensive high-end scopes, if you will. This is definitely more in that mid-range to not necessarily budget, because it is, again, a little bit under $500, so it's not necessarily cheap, but it's also not really a high-end scope either. Now, getting into specifics on the BTR Gen 2, I believe MSRP is like $650, though again, street price is usually under $500 and occasionally under $400. So again, not a terribly expensive LPVO, especially when we get into the overall performance. Now, this being a 1:10 by 28 second focal plane, 28mm objective lens means that this has a 34mm main tube. On top of that, as you can tell, it is definitely a bit of a thick, girthy boy, if you will, but the weight comes in at just over 18 ounces. Now, 18 ounces for an LPVO is fairly lightweight, especially when we're taking into consideration that this is a 34mm main tube with 1:10x magnification. Now, externally, we have, of course, capped windage and elevation knobs, which is going to be a little bit more secure and is my preference on LPVOs, especially ones that come with a very good BDC, so you're really not going to be doing any dialing anyways, but we'll get into that in just a minute. On the left-hand side, we, of course, have our Illumination Dial, which has 6 settings. Now, it has an offsetting in between each one, which is a very nice feature to have, so you can just instantly turn it on to whichever one that you want. Now, on maximum brightness, which is 6, it is not exactly daylight bright, like a red dot bright, but it is one of the brighter LPVOs on the market. I'll probably be showing you some footage of that here, and it shows up very, very cleanly. It is very easy to pick up even in full daylight. Again, it's not like red dot bright or fiber optic bright like you'll get on the PST Vipers, but it is a very good illumination for a standard-ish illumination style. Now, unlike a lot of other budget LPVOs in this price range, not only does the center section of the reticle illuminate, but also the BDC as well. So if you are taking extended shots in dusk or low light scenarios, not no light, but low light scenarios, that BDC will light up and allow you to probably take those shots a little bit easier, which is, again, a feature you don't see on a lot of other budget optics in this price range. Now, moving back from there, we, of course, have our Magnification Ring, which has a 180-degree throw between 1 and 10. Feels very good. It has a decent amount of resistance to it. Now, importantly, this throw lever is not included. This is just a cheap one that I had laying around, and it didn't exactly fit, so I actually used some electrical tape to make up the difference. So now I do have a throw lever that does work, and you have a 1:10x magnification range, so you have a lot of different magnifications that you can be at for any given circumstance. Last thing to mention on the body itself is you do have, of course, a rear diopter for adjusting the image to, or the reticle to your eyes. Everybody's eyes are a little bit different, so again, you want to make sure that that reticle looks as good to you as it can. Now, getting into some of the usability and performance aspects of this 1:10x LPVO, this is a 34mm main tube, which gives you about a 20% larger objective lens than what you're going to get on a 30mm main tube LPVO, which is going to be one of the things with this optic that helps it achieve some very nice characteristics when it comes to overall usability. So starting off with eye relief, they quote eye relief as 3.2 inches on the website. That is, again, completely incorrect. So on 1X, you have anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of overall eye relief. On top of that, the eye box itself is also very good. You have perhaps a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch in all directions when you're perfectly behind the optic, where you can still get a decent sight picture and use the optic. So if you're shooting in weird positions, shooting around barricades, cover, what have you, or just shooting long range, it is a very easy optic to get behind. Now, when you dial all the way up to 10x, it does, of course, tighten up quite a bit. However, you still have a little bit of forward and back play, as well as a tiny bit left, right, up, and down. This optic on 10x is more usable than some other budget LPVOs on 6x or 8x. Some of that has to do with the larger tube size in general, giving it a larger exit pupil with a 28mm objective lens versus a 24mm objective lens, and some of the other magic going on internally. Now, what that means is the Helos BTR Gen 2, even though it does have a very high 10x top-end magnification, is still very usable, which is one of the major downsides of an LPVO, of course, with size and weight. And that being said, this one here only comes in at 18.3 ounces, so it's not terribly heavy, and it has a very good usability when it comes to the eye box and eye relief. Now, on top of that, the glass quality itself, with something to do with, again, the larger objective lens allowing more light through the optic in general, the optic does look very good, not necessarily top tier. It doesn't compete with other optics out there. I've seen some people make some very bold claims about its glass quality, and those are mostly incorrect. The glass quality is very good and perhaps a small step up from what you'll get with other 30mm budget LPVOs. So the glass quality is very good. It's very bright. It's very sharp. You will notice a optical degradation when going from 1x all the way to 10x. It is not quite as crisp or clear. You're not going to get the same sort of clarity that I would get out of like the GLX 2.5 to 10 on 10x. Now, that being said, the optical quality is firmly in the good category. And remember, this is a 34mm main tube with a 10x top end magnification that only comes in at 18.3 ounces. In fact, with this Aero Precision super light mount, the entire package, I believe, is just over 22.5 ounces, something like that, which is a lot lighter than other just basic LPVOs on the market, not including their mounts. So the eye box, eye relief, all of that is good combined with good optical quality, but something that we haven't touched on yet is going to be the 1x performance and the field of view. Now, field of view, if you know my rating, anything above 100 feet at 1x on an LPVO is good. Anything above 110 is very good. And anything above 120 is excellent and heading towards the top tier of LPVOs. Now, this optic comes in with a 1x field of view at 100 yards of 110 feet. So it does have a very good field of view. Now, while that is nice to have at 1x, really what's important about that is it translates to all of the other magnification ranges. So that means that throughout your immense 1 to 10 magnification range, you have very good field of view throughout. A lot of other LPVOs that are a little bit lower on that spectrum, it doesn't really matter at 1x, but as you start to crank up the magnification, you start to see much less and less as it goes up, and that's where that extensive field of view really starts to pay off, is at extended distances. And remember, we have 10x magnification, so we can certainly take this optic out to those further distances. Now, combine that with a 1x performance is what I would consider to be very good. It is not a perfect 1x image, but it is, again, very good. It is flat, it is natural, it is easy to transition from target to target, combined with what we'll get into in just a minute is a very fast reticle that does illuminate very decently for just a standard style of emitter. So again, when you start to add all of these things up, you have a rifle scope that is not particularly expensive, very good 1x performance, very good field of view, a good eye box, good eye relief. It's not particularly heavy. It has good illumination, and the glass quality is in the very good category, again, for its price point. And we're not done yet, because we need to talk about the reticle. Now, I forget the exact name of the reticle. It's like the AR-BD4 or something reticle. It is a BDC reticle with some auto-ranging features, as well as wind holds for 5 and 10 mile an hour winds. Now, all of the time that I had this optic out to distance, I was using it on the 16-inch FN build, and this optic married perfectly with that build. The FN barrel was very accurate, especially with, I believe I was using 77 grain HSM for all the extended distance shooting. It did very well in windy conditions. The BDC lined up basically perfectly with that ammo. Now, your gun, your ammunition is going to line up differently, so you're going to need to true it out for your specific gun, ammunition combo, barrel conditions, all of that sort of fun stuff. Getting into the reticle. So again, we have a center dot at 10x magnification. I believe is somewhere between 1 and 2 MOA, as well as we have a half circle on top of the optic to kind of draw your eye to the center, as well as hash marks leading into the center. And then below the center section, we have, of course, the BDC for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 700 yards, as well as corresponding wind holds for 5 and 10 mile an hour winds. All of that is perfect. Again, with my specific, the FN 16-inch barrel with the 77 grain HSMs, the BDC lined up basically perfectly at all distances, and I did take it out to 700 yards on multiple occasions, basically without any issue whatsoever. The gun was very accurate, the ammunition was very accurate, the glass quality on the optic is great, 10x magnification is more than enough for 700 yards. Sure, ideally we'd like to have 14, 15, 16, 20, so on and so forth for those extended range shots, but 10x is more than enough to get the job done with an acceptable level of precision. Now, on top of that, underneath the reticle, we also have our horizontal and I believe vertical ranging features or auto ranging features. So basically you can bracket a target using that lower auto ranging feature to get an approximate distance and then line it up with the BDC and go ahead and take that shot. Now, I don't really use the auto ranging features as I am not shooting at targets that correspond to that auto ranging feature, but again, it is something that is there and you could use should you need it.
Hit.
So basically every feature of this optic comes together to make a very pleasurable to use optic. It is very usable at basically any distance, anything inside of 0 to 700 yards. If your skills are up to the task, the optic is not going to hold you back. Now, all of that positivity out of the way, let's go ahead and get into how the optic failed during the drop test. Now, I usually do a tiered drop test now, so the first drop is onto dirt and rocks, which is not a particularly hard drop test. It is certainly harder than what 99% of you will ever experience, but it is something that is not quite as hard as like an AR-500 steel plate or concrete or something like that. So of course, to start out, we do a 5-round control group at 50 yards using Winchester M193, just their 55 grain ball load. And then we do a shoulder height drop onto dirt and rocks. Now, after the first drop, the optic failed, and it failed in a way that I've had other budget LPVOs fail in, specifically the Black Hound or the Black Hound 1-8, their Genesis, which is also a 34mm main tube, failed in a very similar way. So basically the internal parallax shifted from about 100 yards to about 1,000 yards, meaning that everything inside of that distance is incredibly blurry, especially when we get to 10x power. Now, this optic is still usable at like 1 to 3x, but as you start getting higher and higher into the magnification range, it looks like you smear more and more Vaseline over the front of the optic. Now, I had this explained to me one time about how that happens. Basically, there's some sort of internal track that has like clips on it on the inside, and you drop it, it experiences a sharp impact. One of those clips breaks, and then it shifts so that the parallax is like way off, or some sort of internal focus thing moves. Again, I'm not an optometrist. I don't know exactly what's going on inside of these optics. All I know is that it did fail during the first shoulder height drop test. Now, again, I've had this happen on at least 3 other optics. The Black Hound optic, I had it happen on a Strike Eagle Vortex, one of the Vortex Strike Eagle, I believe it was the 1-8 model. The parallax shifted, not quite as bad. It was still certainly usable, but you definitely noticed that the focus was just a little bit off at like 8x magnification. And then I also had it happen on like a super cheap Amazon scope as well. So this is a problem I've seen on other Chinese-made optics. It is unfortunate, and now it's always important to note as well that every single drop that I've ever done on the channel is anecdotal to my optic, my gun, in those specific circumstances on that specific day, and it doesn't necessarily translate to what's going to happen to your optic, your gun, your drop in a totally different set of circumstances. So again, these are anecdotal, and at best for you, they're going to be another data point for you to consider, and I personally don't mind dropping, breaking, sacrificing optics to give you that data point. Now, after this video, I probably will reach out to Athlon and see if they will warranty this optic. And then if they warranty this optic, send me out another one, so on and so forth. I'll probably just go out to the range, do another drop test on it, and see if it fails in the exact same way, see if it passes, fails in a different way, what have you, and then probably do a short update video after that, again, if they actually end up warranting it. Now, with all of that out of the way, I can still recommend this optic for anything outside of a hard use application. If you want to use it for 3-gun, I think it would work very well, especially if you marry a barrel and ammunition choice that lines up well with the BDC. Again, you're going to have to do a little bit of research, a little bit of trial and error to figure out what works well with your specific gun, ammunition, BDC, environmentals, all that sort of fun stuff. So competition, excellent. Just basic range use and training if you like to use LPVOs for target practice. Hunting, if you like to do hunting varmints or whatnot, I think it would work well for that. Again, anything outside of a super hard use, quote unquote, duty application, I still would recommend the optic for. It's not particularly expensive as well. But if you are looking for some super hard use application LPVO, this is probably something at this point, at least again in my specific experience, my singular drop on this optic, I would probably pass on by. But with all that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of the Athlon Helos BTR Gen2 1-10 by 28 MPVO. And actually, as soon as this video is over, I'm actually going to be installing the, what is this? This is the Primary Arms SLX 1-10 by 28. So this is basically their new 1-10 SLX line that just came out, also a 34mm main tube. Not quite as usable, but we'll get into that at a later point in time. Again, with all that out of the way, guys, I hope you enjoyed the videos. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace off. Is it hit?
Still left edge.
Yep, left edge plate. Middle of plate, little low. That looked like center left.